Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining. We're in this quick video by popular demand. It's Cartesian Coordinate with Vorpal Weapon. And not just Vorpal Weapon, I've taken a look at this with liquid coils and accelerated coils. RNG was very kind to me when chasing after the liquid coils variants, with only the second Umbral Engram focus before I had it. So regarding popular demand, there was a lot of questions asking, how do I think Cartesian Coordinate would be with Vorpal Weapon? Do I think it would be better for DPS and high impact reserves? Well, let's take a look, testing it with liquid coils followed by accelerated coils. And just to confirm, they were tested against Carl with a major spec mod, one loader mod and nothing to boost reserves as per my normal testing. Firstly, I'd like to talk a little about accelerated coils and liquid coils. This will take a while, so if you're only interested in Cartesian numbers, feel free to use the chapters below to skip ahead. So accelerated coils decrease charge time but also damage, while liquid coils increase damage but also increase charge time. An example of the damage difference is on screen now, accelerated coils on the left and liquid coils on the right. Damage with accelerated and particle deconstruction fully procced is 52,065, while the same damage per burst for liquid coils is 54,081. That's a 3.9% increase in damage. Now, I am using accelerated coils as the datum here. Strictly speaking, there should be a Cartesian with Vorpal and neither of the coil perks, but there's no need to make things more complicated by adding a third set of numbers, so I'm just using these two, with accelerated considered as the base. And for charge time, accelerated coils on the left again and taking roughly 0.45 seconds to charge, with liquid on the right taking roughly 0.52 seconds to charge. This is a 15.5% increase. So because there's a larger percentage increase to charge time than there is damage, we can already comfortably say DPS for liquid coils will be lower than accelerated. However, since there is an increase to damage, albeit only small, total damage will be higher for liquid. This is something we see often with Destiny, where the faster firing weapon will have better average DPS but less total damage than the slower in firing weapon of the same type. It's all about that balance. Coming onto screen now is a small table with some example numbers. What you're seeing in the first row, example 1, is a made up fusion rifle that does 10,000 damage per burst and takes half a second to charge. For 5 rounds that's 50,000 damage, 2.5 seconds to do that damage, and therefore DPS is 20,000. This is purely hypothetical, by the way. Of course, with a charge time of 0.5 seconds, it will take longer to fire 5 rounds as there's burst time, a very small delay between the final projectile and the start of the next charge, etc. But I'm ignoring that for this example. Or you could just say half a second is the full cycle time for a single burst. It's up to you. Anyway, in the row below, example 2, are those same numbers, but they've been adjusted to simulate the change from accelerated coils to liquid coils, so a 3.9% buff to damage and a 15.5% increase to charge time. You can see that while total damage has increased, so has the charge time but by a larger factor, and therefore DPS has dropped. And this is what I was saying a minute ago, higher total damage for liquid coils but lower average DPS. Now, Bungie needs to offset the time and damage this way, because if they made the same percentage increase to both damage and charge time, then things wouldn't be balanced. 2 more rows are coming onto screen now, example 3 and example 4. For 3, the same 3.9% increase has been applied to both damage and charge time, while for example 4, 15.5% has been applied to both damage and charge time there. For those examples with the same percentage increase, you can see that not only does the average DPS remain the same, but total damage is higher. If Bungie did it this way, accelerated coils would almost be pointless and liquid always better, but they haven't. They've offset the perks in such a way that there's a choice to be made, higher and more DPS or more total damage. And this isn't just fusion rifle perks, it's the same for anything. Take snipers for example. Typically a 140 RPM sniper will have better DPS than a 72 RPM sniper, but less total damage, because the relative increase or decrease between fire rate and damage is offset. If it was the same, then 72 RPM snipers could match 140 RPM snipers for DPS but with more total damage, which of course wouldn't be balanced. Now, this is just a very basic example with only 2 samples, and it will be much more complicated to determine fire rate and damage changes across the game with multiple archetypes, but I wanted to talk about these coil perks and shed a little light on them. To sum up, accelerated coils are better for DPS, liquid coils are better for total damage. Anyway, and thank you to anyone who made it through all of that. Time to look at Cartesian now, starting with liquid coils and Vorpal Weapon. The first round fully proc, particle deconstruction as you may have expected, so everything after that was with the 40% debuff. Thankfully, with no high impact reserves, numbers are pretty much straightforward. There's a table coming onto screen now just to show the damage from each projectile and the full breakdown. There was the occasional rogue number with Liquid, Coils and Vorpal, where sometimes a projectile would do more damage than all other 8, but it was always different and didn't happen every time, so I've ignored that when it happened and used a normal value instead. I could hold 19 rounds in reserves, so with a base opening round and then 18 with the debuff, total damage came in at 1,012,614. For the timings, I could hold 7 in the magazine, meaning 2 full rounds and a final one of 5. Time to fire all of them came in at 21.9 seconds, therefore DPS was 46,238. This is now more or less on par with Merciless, but it can keep firing for longer and has much more total damage. And finally, it's Accelerated Coils, the usual first round fully proc particle deconstruction. Numbers are again very straightforward with a table coming onto screen now. As before, I could hold 19 rounds with nothing to boost that, so total damage for one standard round and 18 with the debuff was 974,892, so as expected, less damage than Liquid. Timings were the same, 2 max of 7 and 1 of 5, but with that faster charge time, I was able to fire them all in 20.23 seconds, which is 1.67 seconds faster than Liquid Coils. This meant DPS came to, even with less total damage, 48,190. The best out of all the fusion rifles I've tested with particle deconstruction except for 1K voices. So a table is coming onto screen now ranking these two and everything from the last test. Pause the video now if you want a little more time to look at this as we're moving straight onto the graph. So I'm starting with everything from the last video, although I have removed Jotun and Iota Draconis as they were the two worst performers and I didn't want the graph to be too cluttered with 10 weapons. So coming up now is Cartesian with Liquid, Coils and Vorpal Weapon. This time around, it does a better job of keeping with 1k at the start. At no point does it drop below Null Composure now, and even manages to stay above Merciless all the time. And yes, to answer those of you who asked in the comments section, Vorpal Weapon is clearly a better perk than High Impact Reserves on Cartesian Coordinate for both total damage and DPS. Remember, these both have Liquid Coils, so they're a direct comparison. But let's see how Accelerated did. This, once again, is even better for matching 1k from the start, and at this point, it's where you could claim it's possibly better, spending a lot of time above it, while 1k is charging and firing the initial beam of death. The only thing that lets Cartesian down here, and in all 3 examples, is they need to reload while 1k still has a 4th and final round left in its mag. With Accelerated Coils and Vorpal Weapon, however, and no other fusion rifle does this, once it's back on it and firing from its second mag, there are still brief moments where it passes 1k. Admittedly, it's not for very long, but still, this is a legendary energy fusion rifle that, as far as I'm concerned, is trading blows with a heavy exotic weapon. It's only around 17 to 18 seconds as well that Cartesian, with Accelerated Coils and Vorpal Weapon, has matched the damage of 1k and then passes it. And as for Merciless having slightly better average DPS than Vorpal and Liquid Coils, well, you may as well just ignore that. It's ahead of Merciless damage for almost the entire test, and never drops below, which is clear on the graph. The top 3 weapons for me in this test will be 1k and both Cartesian Coordinates with Vorpal. I am actually very impressed, and I'm also very happy that so many of you asked for this in the comments of the last video, so genuinely, thank you. Sticking to the 2 coil perks with Vorpal, my preference would be Accelerated. I have no issues sacrificing a little total damage for a perk combo that has done more damage at almost any other given point, with the exception of those brief moments where it's reloaded. As for any Vorpal combination compared to High Impact Reserves, like I've already said, yes, Vorpal is the better choice for both total damage and DPS, never doing less damage at any moment than High Impact Reserves. A very short video, but that is all from me. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not already, and give me any feedback in the comments down below. For anyone who is new, this video was only made due to the questions people asked in the comments of my last video. So if there's anything you'd like to see, just let me know. And for those of you who did ask for this, I hope it answered your questions. Now, for me, it's back to linear fusion rifle testing, which should be out within the next week or 2. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.